Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kirusho here, and now, before we do begin, let me give a brief little review. In the last part, we had a number of events happen. Deku and our group, they encountered something odd. Whenever they were in an arena after Deku defeated the creature during combat, they went over a lot of things the next morning. They made camp here, but they awoke in a lush green forest, one Ochako seemed to recognize. After they were looking around, they found a puzzle. Deku and Bakugo fought the guardian of the puzzle, while Ochako tried to get the right answer. And after they went through, they ran into something interesting. They met a man who was wearing a cloak, and they even met another strange warrior. But that was when they came to stop the two from messing with the things binding the Tarrasque inside of a cave. Now, that was more alarming. There are stories of the Tarrasque, and how many of them have been sealed, locked away, or even banished to other planes of existence. But seeing one in person, it is different from the stories. Raw chaos, raw destruction, and raw bloodlust, given a physical form. Something that they really don't want to unleash. Now, Deku, whenever he saw one of the men who came to approach them, he saw that it was Usun Druso, and he was ready to rip that man from armpit to asshole. Though, he was stopped upon the others intervening. If they fight too close to this Tarrasque, they might accidentally undo the bindings sealing it there. And the person, the hooded mystery man, introduced himself as Fino. He was an elf, but more than that, he called himself a planeswalker from 7,000 years in the past. Now, this was rather odd. And Izuku, he was knocked unconscious whenever it was realized he would not play rational. But whenever he was awakened, Druso realized very quickly that this man wanted his fucking head. Now, upon Deku calming down somewhat, and even talking about how he'll let dogs lie, after threatening to kill the man again and Theodore and his younger self intervening, yeah, he did have to pull himself back. He wasn't happy about it, but they kept trying to bring up about how this might change the timeline. But Izuku did at least get one more jab in, telling this man exactly how his future does go down. He doesn't know the daughter he left his wife with. The woman dies shortly after Lillian is born. The woman who he loves is the man's daughter, and he intends to show her that love when he gets back. That was exactly what Deku told the man, along with the fact he basically betrayed the entire nation he swore loyalty with as a paladin. So that must have been an even harder blow for the man to take. But Deku didn't quite care. Whenever they got to the Sphinx's library, that was where the creature introduced itself, and it made things quite clear to everyone. The knowledge here is free for them to possess, though it would like them to add to its collective knowledge. People come here and go, and today is a day they are allowed here. They may ask it questions at a cost for information, and that is a bit tricky. To Izuku, this sounds like a Fey deal, but to the others, it sounds like an interesting little bargain. Now then, a few hours have passed by, and everyone, they have been trying to gain their bearing on how this does go. Some people have come to the library, though from what they've been able to tell, they're from different time periods. They don't do much, but with how large this place is, how massive it is, you might not bump into anyone at all. And that certainly does mean something. Though right now the library is empty, and the Sphinx, it does somewhat sit there overlooking the area, watching these people who have come here, well aware of where and when each of them are from. And Deku, he still is somewhat looking at a few things, staring at the cover to some strange books and reading their languages. He's just in shock by how much is here. I mean, every language he knows gives him a new section of the library to look into, look at, and expand. And all they need to do is trade information. It's not a bad concept, but with how much is here, there's a lot about what this creature may not know. Though that does raise a question. It's from multiple time periods. They don't know when it's from, where it started this journey, where it will go next. But it's here now. It's said before all of time exists here. And Deku, he does currently walk down the aisle and turn, holding up a hand and grabbing a book that does detail a bit about Tarask. Him reading the cover in the ancient primordial tongue. And he is very interested in it. Though he also is going to turn, going to see a book with a title in the strange new language he does know. And he does go to walk over and hold up the book, reading the title that does document the empire that the first nation ever existed had. And he does find it to be quite interesting. Though he does go to open the cover, and the moment he does so, he does go to hear a voice. The large, lion-like creature going to sit on the bookcase above, expressing, "He has found that book, and he has opened the cover. That does mean he depends to choose it, correct?" "Yes, it does. Though it's a very tempting book." "It is. One of your many selected. Many of your comrades have expressed interest in many books, but they are wary of the deals that will be struck with them." "Well, I can understand that. It's a scary proposition." "Yes, but you all possess such interesting knowledge, interesting concepts and things. Tell me, what knowledge will you give me for that book?" "What knowledge would you like?" "I would like knowledge I do not know, possess, but that is hard to come by." "Yes. Planeswalkers often have interesting information. They come from many realms, many places, and even come from many Earths." They go freezing before he does go turn to the creature. "Earth?" "Yes. You know of Earth." "I know of many versions of Earth. Why is this one different?" "I'm just asking." "That is interesting." "Yes. But I also do collect experiences. People, their experiences are nice to know. History, memories, or other things they do tend to leave behind. In fact, there was a planeswalker who lived during the First Empire. I met him, and his memories, they were quite interesting." "Really?" You take all memories. Yes, information is information. A bias implies good and evil. A bias implies a stake to said information. You might like some of the information I do have to share, and I am willing to part with. But would you, how would this work? I'm concerned it's like a fey bargain. It is not. You simply are suspicious of my kind and my realm. This place is neutral ground. Breaking said rule implies you are not neutral. You are a threat, and you will be dealt with accordingly. Deku nodding his head, expressing about how he does have a system similar in his own mind, trying to explain his demiplane to this creature. And the others, they are still going through information about what they want to collect here. Bakugo, he found information about powerful swordsmen, influential people of the past. I mean, stuff about pirates out there, stuff about the creatures out there, even stories of some of the darker things that exist in the plains. It's incredible the stuff this library does possess. Some of it is in languages he can hardly understand, but he does recognize their written form, just enough to know it's possible to decipher them. Though he doesn't like it, there is the idea of getting Izuku to try and translate this information. He's got that weird skill. And honestly, right now, he's a bit jealous of it. Though, he is well aware of making bargains with the Fae, and how bad that can be from how Deku's life turned out. Though, it is quite curious. Maybe he should try to deal with the situation in the Feywild. See how that does turn out for him. Strike a deal with the Fae. That could be good, but that could just get him into more trouble. That on his mind. And Ochako, she was alarmed by the immense amount of magical spells this library had cataloged. An entire section she found was dedicated to one form of magic. One form of magic. Different ways to utilize it, from the mundane to the arcane to weaponizing it. It's just the little things. Even a spell that could be used to boil a tub of water. There were just books full of this supposed information. She was curious to check it out, and she was able to do so. By offering to give her life story to the library, she was given permission to open and access these books. And while it was a bit more of a risk, she was quickly able to figure out there was no harm to it. Though, the creature was quite interested to discover she was a fellow scholar of knowledge. And it did enjoy the small conversations it had with them. Though there is actually Pierce, who right now she does just want to sit there reading a book, talking about a few things, and looking at Theodore, telling him about it. She's still finding this to be so insane. I mean, the actual history of the worlds. I mean, the Tarask was created. For centuries, scholars believe these creatures to be of myth, but one's outside. It looks different, but they were actually created by something. If the Demon Lord had some of those creatures, then it could be the end of the plains itself. And it's so incredible. Her slamming the book closed before wincing as one of the smaller sphinxes does go to land, making its way over and going to raise its tail to its mouth, making a shushing motion as it does go to flicker its tail left and right, informing her to please be quieter in the library. It is open for all, and to please be more delicate with the pages. They are enchanted for longevity, not durability. And she is a bow her head apologetically and express about her being excitable for this information. And we do even have the younger counterparts. They were still in awe at the library, talking with some of the little creatures here and even trying to figure out their own forms of magic they could learn. And this Deku, he was quite intrigued about. He sat down with a few books and even offered up his own life story. Though upon warning the Sphinx of his own curse, the Sphinx took a bit more of a heavy interest in that. It likes to study things that are odd, and a curse placed upon him by a divine being, if not a darker god, that is a point of interest. Something rare, not unheard of, but definitely on the more interesting side. And it did even offer Deku some knowledge in return for studying this. And he was quite surprised by this. He was allowed to ask it a question. And he was concerned about that. His younger self walking over and setting down some books, going to pull up the chair in front of Deku as he does look up from his book, letting out a sigh and looking at his younger counterpart. I'm a little bit busy right now. I can't deal with you. I know. I was looking at a few things, and I was curious about if you know spatial magic. You mean gravity magic? No, spatial magic. It's a powerful form. You said that you knew a few, and that white magic you used earlier, the one that you were going to use to blast us away. I'm not going to have this awkward conversation with you. You really want him dead. Him going to look up and set down his book carefully or bring his hands up. Going to express, folding them on the table. He does. The man is unredeemable in his eyes. The man has done much to earn his ire. Is that what he wishes to ask him about? Or does he wish to ask him about the forms of magic he does wield? I noticed the strange tattoos. Yeah. I'm keeping them hidden under these wristbands. They move. They tend to do that. They're a form of forbidden magic. Forbidden magic? I've never heard of that before. That's kind of the point of it. Forbidden magic is a lot like a forbidden technique. Things that are either too dangerous for too many people to know, or things that are so dangerous, the people who know them are very few because they don't fuck them up. I see. And what do you have? Destruction magic. If I want to, I can wipe out anything on my path, bypass any defense, or if I even want to, destroy somebody's soul. Really? Yes. They wouldn't even pass on to the next world and get a second life. It's just like the instant death spell. The same spell Druso used to destroy Oliver and Pyrrhus' souls. So, so that's why you didn't resurrect them. Yeah. She dies in my arms. I remember whispering to her that everything was going to be okay. He phrased a spell so that the last thing she lost was her hearing. I remember that day quite clearly. She's clutching onto you. She is trying to grasp desperately on to the fact that she's losing her sense of touch. She's losing her sense of self. She's losing her eyesight. She loses her ability to smell. All she can do is listen to my voice as she dies. That's horrible. I've relived that moment every single day until I got that curse broken. Every single day. I would see her, I'd see Oliver. They would say things to me, blame me, make me angry. Or I'd have to sit there and listen to so many other bad things I've seen witness to. I've seen the worst things people have ever done to each other. Some things I can't understand, some things I can't. All because of that man. At one point, I've even dreamed of Mom. I've even dreamed of Dad. Those dreams could be worse or better. I try to forget them, but in a weird way, you get used to it. He told me he would take away my peace. He did that. All he left me with was what you see now. But I've been getting better, trying to find it. There are still lingering effects. Deku pointing at his eyes, talking about how those spots there aren't white anymore. They stayed remaining the same dark gray the guy left him with. So yeah. Sorry if he's not too much on the list for mercy. He only wants that man dead. Really? There are still innocent people out there. That's good to hear. So you're not as bad as I thought you were. I wouldn't say that. What do you mean? I would just say that I know there are innocent people. I just have trouble finding them. But there's a lot more bad out in the world. And you have to be careful with it. I only give one second chance. If you defy that second chance, you don't get another. Sometimes, though, you need to know when to kill. I've learned that lesson. And that's why that man needs to die. He doesn't deserve a second chance. You don't believe in it for him? No. He lost that chance when he betrayed Cronulla, betrayed us, and decided to make a choice. Gods know why. He's on my hit list. That's all. Him raising his book and talking about it. Now if he's done with the questions, wait. Him glancing up and sighing, asking, what is it now? I heard you mention a few people before. I mean, well, it's a bit awkward. You're with Lillian? Yes. And I heard Bakugo make a statement before about princesses? I see. So he told you that I'm with three women. You're with three? Ah, I see. He didn't. Yes. One is the granddaughter of an archfey. She's pretty powerful, and she does get a bit friendlier with time. We do have a bit of a good reputation, but you could call her the woman of your dreams. She uses dream magic, Izuku. The next is Atrig's daughter, who she is currently back at home nesting. Nesting? She lays eggs. Him glaring at his younger self and waiting for it to drop. Then he does a stare blankly at Deku. Before he does express, Lillian wasn't exactly his idea. He blames it on Indra. Before he does a look back down, talking about it. That's really all I could say about that. Though, anything else? Um, no. Like a chicken? No, not like a chicken. Though if you did tell her that, I'm pretty sure she's gonna punch you in the face. I'm sure she'd punch me. Right, right. I'm just very confused. Him going to turn his head as Deku does feel a strange pressure around them, and everyone on the nearby tables does a jump up. Deku turning and glaring around, trying to see where that power is coming from. But a man, he does come walking up, expressing. He doesn't wish to disturb them, but are they using one of the books here? Him glancing around and looking at a table, talking about it. Yes, that one there. Him walking over and going to grab for it. However, Deku, he does go to raise a hand up and go to place it on the book, informing the man. Who is he? Why, I'm just someone from another world. I believe time period as you are. If that's the case, are you a planeswalker? You could say that. Now, if I could please take this book. It does not appear that you are using it. Deku backing his hand away and telling the man. He seems pretty powerful. Yes, I do often tend to try to stay that way. Go on a few good hunts and love a few good women. It is a way of life for the warriors. I see yourself a warrior. Him nodding his head and telling him. People call him Dragon Slayer sometimes. I see. Well, now, albeit for me to not address someone of my fellow kinship. Him raising a hand to the tattoos and markings covering his face, talking about it. He was quite curious of the Underdark. He does not believe it to be a place in his world, but he does wish to investigate it further. An entire world underground does certainly sound like something he would be interested in. It could make for one hell of an adventure for his children. I see. Him raising a hand, and the man does a grab Deku by his own wrist. The two going to test each other's power. Before Deku, he does give the man a firm, solid squeeze to the arm. And the man does still glare Deku down, though this time his expression does get a soften. Deku's softening as well, telling the man, he's Izuku of Granola. I didn't quite catch that. I'm Junto. It is nice to meet you. My home is many places. I tend to travel nowadays. But when I do head back home, I'm sure I will have a story to tell. Farewell. Him turning, looking at everybody before he just stared at Bakugo, his eyes lingering on him for a minute, before he turn back to the strange man in front of him, with the dark hair. And this time, he does get a nod at the man, talking about it. Perhaps one day they will meet again. He would be quite interested to test his strength, though he must be running along now. He's got quite a lot to do. The man turning, as right now he does get to walk briefly away. Him going to have a chain rattle down towards his side, though he does get to bring a hand up informing it. Now, that's not what it needs to do. Stay. And it does a curl up around his arm protectively, as if it was a living creature. And Deku does stare at the man as he's going to walk off into the library and vanish. Quite surprised by that. Though he does turn his attention back to his younger self, glancing at him before he does a somewhat shrug. Not sure who that guy was. Though Deku, he does go to talk about it. Right. So did anyone else find anything interesting in the library? I found a few things. Bakugo stating. Him still a bit wary, since that guy seemed powerful. More so by Planeswalker standards. And he does even going to talk to the other, glancing at the elf, who does go shake his head, since that's not somebody he recognizes. But his power isn't to be questioned. And he does begin talking, clearing his throat about how he found a few techniques. Not even that, but magic types. If the orcs and onis had access to the stuff that's in this book, they would be elated. I mean, combat magics. Actual magical combats. I mean, Aerodos has that weird thing before. To enhance your speed and give her a bit of an edge. The Onis, they have that. There also is the fact that they do have another form of combat magic, reinforcement. It does give them additional strength, but right now he believes it to be an evolved form. Enhancement magic. There's even stuff about impacts being harder, stronger, hardier, or even glancing blows actually landing. And get this, even about putting damage on an opponent, countering it in full. I see. I can do something similar with one of my powers. Really? Yeah. I tend not to use it in a fair fight. Though, it's a bit different. You can do that? Of course I can. I can do a lot of things. I can reopen mental wounds, physical wounds, stuff like that. Though, I'm still getting a grasp on some of my new mental powers. That's odd. Really? Yeah. That book is useless to me, but maybe there's something in there you can learn. I'd love to see it if it does give you some improvement. Ochako? I found a few things, but not really much stuff that I can't do with my, chaos magic. It is interesting because it does help me get more variety, but I'm still liking this buff and debuff thing that I'm doing. But it could be interesting to learn. If not, try to cast. Learn the basics of those magics and see what I can improve upon later. I mean, there's a lot I could do. Right. And other than ancient history and some other combat stuff, I haven't really found too much. But there's still a lot of interesting things in that stack I'm going through. I mean, there's even a book about destruction magic. The arts I wield. It's incredible, but it seems incomplete. How so? Well, they didn't fully master the ability. It's like they just poofed before they could. Not surprising, but there's a lot of other stuff in here. That's true. Theodore speaking up, talking about how he's even seen some stuff for gravity magic. Gravity magic isn't fully understood. Someone writing a grimoire about it, let alone an entire book about it, should still be impossible. I mean, many powerful warriors on the front lines, they can't master magics like this. Not easy without decades of experience. To truly master one would mean you could write a book of spells on one. That's the main issue. I see. And because none of us could really do that, we couldn't be considered masters of our own arts. Exactly. Bakugo steadying in. And it is rather odd for the younger counterparts to see how in sync these three could be. Their minds are like cocks. They're coming to similar conclusions but with different ways of thinking. And it does intrigue them all. Right out Deku talking about it. He found the book on ancient history, destruction arts, stuff about spiritual arts, and even one about necromancy. But that's where things get weird. Why are you learning necromancy? I'm not trying to learn necromancy. With Gan back at base, at home, we gotta figure out what to do there. And I'm trying to think if there is a way for us to take the portion of his soul out that has Kirishima's soul, if that would be good or wise. The Planeswalker expressing. Fino going to state. That does sound quite dangerous. Possible, but with risk. He believes it would be good for them to perhaps perform one of these arts on him. He is the one that passed, correct? Him looking directly at Kirishima. And Kirishima does go to tense up his Deku, does turn looking at him. Thinking about it for a minute, before talking about it. He doesn't know much about soul magic. He can commune with spirits, but that's on a base level. He can understand them and feel them, but he's not sure about tearing off a piece of Kirishima's soul. That could have dire consequences. It could even begin the process of turning him into a ghoul or even a husk. And with the fact that he already did give a piece of his soul over to his familiar, one not too big, that's already too little to work with. But taking enough for his own consciousness, that would be another problem. Yeah, I see your point. Plus, we don't have the time for me to learn that. We're all quick studies, but not that quick. This stuff would take us weeks instead of months. That's true. Even if I were to stay up for 3 days straight, I don't know if I could learn that. 3 days on, 1 day off? Huh. I'd give myself about 2 weeks. At the most. And that is constant. Yes. I see. This is rather troubling then. So we know what we're coming here for then. What we came here for? We do. Deku gonna stand, making his way over, and seeing the Sphinx that does somewhat sit there. And it has been quite happy with the exchange of information they have given it. Though, it does not go to ask exactly if Deku does intend to cash in his question. Yes, I do. I'm quite curious about something. And what would that be? How do you bring back a god? Resurrect one, I mean. I see. That information is quite up there. Hmm. Well, now, you've already offered me a decent amount of your memories, but I'm not certain if you can pay that. I'm willing to offer up the other 1,000 years. The combat stuff, not just about the early dragon life or boring information, useless information. I'm willing to offer you all of it. The collective 10,000 years. I see. Even then, I fear that will barely cover it. Is there something I can give you in exchange? Hmm. Information about your destructive arts. Really? Yes. Information there. Your abilities with that magic are quite powerful. And I believe that they are more complete than the library does hold. It turning, looking directly at Ochako, and talking about how her arts could be quite interesting as well. I would like to know more about them. And she does a step forwards quickly and nod her head. And the two, they do to have strange glows being emit from their heads. Before it is a fly out and towards the Sphinx, who does get a nod his head, quite intrigued about it. For it is a turn and inform Deku. Now that is rather interesting. Yes, he is a little bit further ahead. The advancement of that magic. He believes that the next person who may come here, they certainly might help improve more of this understanding. And can you get to the point? It turning, a glowing book flying over and making its way over directly in front of them. Deku reaching out and going to grab it. Before someone does a step into the room. And right now, all attention does turn to the doors, as the loud sound can be heard. And someone does get a step in. And the Sphinx does get a frown, since some very unfriendly visitors have just arrived. And right now, it does get a turn, informing them. Their time is now up. The library will be closing. Unfortunately, it cannot say much. The book contains the information he does ask, but remember that the lights are key to that information. The lights. Yes. It's gonna vanish. And right now a loud booming roar can be heard. As the dungeon, it does begin to shift and fade. The libraries around all of them vanishing as the books, they do stay. Some clattering to the ground, and others going to float there, waiting for them to reach out. And Izuku does get a turn, finding himself on a grassy field. Though he does stare on as the large bipedal Tarrasque, it does begin to make its way towards them. And on top of its head is a man they don't recognize, leading the charge towards them. Right now, everybody going to get into place. And Deku, he does a step forwards, bringing his hands up, blasting out his destruction magic directly at the Tarrasque. And he does a watch as it is a cut to the creature's skull, and the person on its head does go to fly up. Them being informed of an event beginning and its current goal. The goal is to survive the Tarrasque's attack, or to escape the current event. Warning: the Tarrasque is a high level creature, and this has turned into a double experience event. Them all looking at each other and staring at that notification. Since this, it's bad. Him turning to the younger counterparts and talking about how they need to run now. And this is where he does a turn. Pierce and Theodore staring the Tarrasque down, but looking with a bit more fearfulness in their eyes. And he does give the order for those two to lead their younger counterparts in retreat. This is out of their wheelhouse. And he does a turn, looking at the man who does begin to step forwards, clapping his hands and informing him. Now that is quite something. The magics he wields, beautiful in fact. Though, him gesturing towards the Tarrasque, and its face is healing right before Deku's very eyes, and its bones do begin to snap and twist with a sound he does not like. Watching as the creature, it does begin to get back to its feet and grow bigger in size. The man expressing, he is simply feeding chaos. Now, it is only right for him to kill them and take what information they have. All information is his right. And that it does put them more on guard. The man stepping forwards and holding up his hand. And this man does express, he is the Dark Lord. They are to subjugate themselves to him and face his judgment. Deku staring at the charging Tarrasque, and he does immediately go to activate his ability. As whenever he does use Sacrificial Pact, he is going to feel an immediate burst of power skyrocket through his veins. And the man does a watch on his Deku, does a hold up his hands, and go to blast out another powerful attack directly through the Tarrasque, slicing it in two as the man does a glare at Deku. Him turning his head in the distance, the ground does begin to split into a massive ravine. And this, it does go to accompanied by the man turning his attention back to Deku, quite intrigued as he does it inform his allies. Right now they need to get ready. Him turning, telling them, if they've got something that they can pull out now would be the time. And Ochako, her wings immediately flare out and fiery red does shoot out of them. As she does a call upon her familiar and the small phoenix, it does go to manifest, answering her call and going to land on her head. It going to begin fueling her with its own fire. And she does have her hair begin to somewhat turn fiery red with the element, as she does allow herself to fall in tune with her familiar. And her mastery over fire, it does begin to show its prowess. Even as I turn to Bakugo, as he does go to express, bring his hands up. Well, at least he's not going to feel out of place now. Though if he's going to be going off with if he's going to be going off with the golden radiance of a god, then albeit for him to have the spotlight. Bakugo beginning to have his body look a little bit more oozy, and it does get followed by a bone mask beginning to protrude from the front of his face. Deku recognizing that from the blob of annihilation, though it's followed by Bakugo going to bring up his hands and go to push them together, them turning into a strange like slimy ooze. And he does understand what this does mean. He is the embodiment of dragons. Bakugo took on the abilities of a monster, gained a benefit from that, a new skill. And Ochako, She took to the skies. Fire is her domain, fury is his. And Bakugo's, he's not quite too sure about that one yet, but he's sure he'll figure it out. And the Tarask, it does come towards them. Deku going to manifest his spiritual armor and fly towards the creature. As the other two, they do mean to make their way against the Demon Lord. And with that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed. And to have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys in the next part.